have to serve copies of that petition to the respondents in this case, which are the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. We also have Wafula Chebukati, chairperson of the IEBC, as well as President Uhuru Kenyatta. That petition will have to be served to all the respondents by close of business today. And in studio for more analysis on this Supreme contest, political analyst Benji Ndolo. We also have Alutalala Mukwana, who is a lawyer, and Tommy Randall, also a lawyer. Gentlemen, before we went on break, we were still brainstorming on the 10 key arguments that NASA has presented in its case. And one of the issues that we have pointed out to is Argument 7 and Argument 8 as contained in that petition. This raises a lot of eyebrows. So Argument 7 here says that IEBC included in the final tally the purported results from ungazetted polling stations, thereby materially affecting the results of the presidential election. Let me begin with you, Mukwana. You know, there's been an issue of undesignated polling stations, but also an issue of undesignated returning officers and presiding officers in the election, affecting the credibility of this election. These are prayers or arguments that have not gotten much airtime, you know, limelight, so to speak. But how much water do these hold?
On the face of it, a lot of water. On the face of it, if you look at that ground,
prima facie,
in the legal terms, that can be very weighty, because the law requires that all polling centers, the returning officers and the presiding officers, ought to be gazetted.
Right.
I have no idea why IBC would, if it did, why IBC would have ungazetted polling centers.
Who signed forms 34?
Precisely. That would be fatal. That would be fatal. And I also am wondering loudly whether NASA, in their own wisdom, would lay this as a ground for their petition, if indeed that is not true. So on the face of it, if this indeed happened, that can form a very interesting point of determination.
Correct.
And ungazetted returning presiding officers, they're actually claiming that there are some people who signed those forms, but they are neither agents, they're not known, and they're not gazetted. If that be the case, and if NASA indeed has the evidence, that is a very interesting focal point.
Can I raise another legal issue,
ahead,
Michelle?
Benji.
If you remember on voting day, on the Tuesday of 8th, within hours of polls closing, we had results streaming in. Well, it turns out that whatever you're seeing on your screen was not the actual.
Precisely.
Was not coming from the 34 A's as stipulated by law. These were numbers, projections. That is serious. And because Benji, what it does, it forms perceptions in the mind that, oh, I guess the president is winning again.
And Benji,
if I was a lawyer for NASA, and I'm saying this because if you look at the Standard headline, there's $1 billion shillings at stake here. So I'd have to earn my money. What was that was being watched? Because it has to come from the 34 A's signed, countersigned against 34 B's verified, and then you transmit. So what was the rush?
And Benji, allow me.
What was the rush?
If you allow me. There is also the requirement that at the polling center, once the results have been concluded, tabulated, there is a requirement in law for the simultaneous sending of the text results with the scanned copy of the results. That is the requirement.
Right.
And that is where claim number 4 of verifiability comes in. That even as the text info was going to the screens, could it be verified if there was no simultaneous sending of a scanned copy of the results? That is where another claim hinges.
But, you know, questions arise as to, you know, was NASA sleeping on its job when it said they would be guarding their votes? Because that particular decision, that presidential results will be final at the constituency level, gave them the green light to ensure that they secure their votes.
Michelle,
how can they now claim it wasn't transparent?
Allow me to respond to that. Another claim that NASA is bringing up, which could answer what you're asking is, did IBC become a law unto itself? NASA is claiming that even when they noticed this, IEBC decided to flout the regulations and therefore they became the law unto themselves. For instance, NASA claims that at the time of filing this petition, they have not been given all the Form 34A's and 34B's.
Correct.
And NASA is not a government. NASA does not have a monopoly of force. So you cannot say, what were they doing? Were they supposed to bring some Msumbiji or Chinkororo or Mungiki to invade and say, stop here until this is done? The answer is no.
Right.
And that is why I say that going to court is the best decision that NASA has made. And I believe that the court will give NASA adequate time, given what my colleague here said. It will give the NASA adequate time to inquire into these questions. It's a very interesting legal discourse.
I just want to correct Wakili because I know lawyers are limited sometimes by the nature of their work. To the courtroom, to the law, to the, to the statute, to the cap. NASA has only one weapon and one weapon only.
Which is?
The people. The people. The people. The millions of people that queued as early as 3 a.m. And I'm not here to advise them. We're just doing analysis.
Precisely.
That believe in Baba. That believe that the National Super Alliance is a broad arrangement of communities, therefore more inclusive, etc. That is, all these other things they're doing is misfiring. It is the people that really, if you read the Constitution, Article 1, that have the power, that is then delegated to elected leaders. It is the people that can say, wait a minute, there's this and this issue, which is, I believe, what they tried to do. However, they were poor in the execution of strategy.
But you're the same person, Benji, saying that we need to find a solution that would unite us as a country. Let's take a look at, the very nature of politics in Kenya. It's very personality-based. I mean, look at, after the announcement of the results, the dispute that came, and we saw Raila Odinga's supporters saying, we don't care what's being said. We want to hear what Raila has to say. And it's the same for the supporters of one Uhuru Kenyatta.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say that in the very heart and spirit of national unity, peace, most of all peace, coming from the 2007 post-election background, that it was only fair that they do not resort to the court of the people and resort to the... I mean, look at what we've seen, the protests coming out in the last, 10, 12 days or so. Some of them turned deadly.
But you see, Michelle, you cannot incite peace. You cannot have peace by force. Peace is a product of justice. These are some of the things I was saying 5 years ago. If you have truth and justice, you have no reason whatsoever to have a discussion on peace. You have no reason for, just to give you a small analogy, which I've used many times before. What we have seen in this country, and I am not holding brief for any political formation, is someone comes into the home of another. For example, Ndolo comes into the house of Aluta, picks a cow, he catches me, then I tell him, no, my brother, let's have peace. That is really the issue at stake. Is that his milk cow that provides him 10 liters a day, that provides sustenance for his family, so I'm caught stealing it, and then I tell him, tafadhali. If we fight, then the grass suffers, the country suffers. Let us please have peace, let us have songs. That is really what has been happening.
I remember during the presidential debate, candidate Michael Wainaina saying, munatafuta mbuzi na mtu aliiba mbuzi, ama mtu ambaye alikula hiyo mbuzi. But that's an interesting. Do you agree, Tommy, that with Benji Ndolo, that they should have gone to the people? And can you really get justice without the courts in the current constitutional dispensation?
Let me first address something he mentioned earlier. He mentioned that a lot of Raila supporters showed up to the poll to vote for him. It's a good thing they did, but unfortunately, they did not make the 50% plus one, as many as they are.
You don't know that?
No, that is the crux of the issue here, right? Yes. So now, this is why we have to go to court to verify whether this was the case or it wasn't the case. Also, I would like to address this allegation of an ungazetted polling station, and it's criminal. It's criminal. It's against something in the Election Act and also in the Penal Code somewhere. So and it's also a very explosive allegation. Should evidence be proven, should be adduced to prove
number
this.
6 is that number what?
Number 7.
Number 7 here. The ungazettement of polling stations and officers.
Presiding officers that were ungazetted.
Yes.
All right, gentlemen, I want us to move away from this. We'll continue keeping an eye on this petition. Of course, today is the deadline for NASA to give the copies of that petition. Maybe just to get to you, Mukwana, what next after the 3 respondents receive that petition?
Well, once they receive the petition, they ought to reply. We have 4 days. Actually, this is the deadline, so to speak. Once they receive the petition, they ought to put in their defense, and they have 4 days. Once they put in their defense, we have what we call the interlocutory session.
Right.
During that time, we'll have a pre-trial conference where they'll make sure that all the pleadings are in order. If there are any issues can be settled before the full trial begins, are settled. And thereafter, we proceed to the full hearing.
All right.
So, but between you and me, even before they are served, I can assure you that the Jubilee lawyers are already burning midnight oil to make sure that they are not caught napping.
And it is 25,000 pages, quite a tall order there.
Precisely.
By the way,
mentioned
footnote.
Yes.
Given the amount of attention and time and economic loss to the country and the economy, it would be most unfortunate that this turn out to be another farce, that this turn out to be a court of jokes and jesters. Just given the amount, you see, businesses have not really come back to where they're supposed to be pre-election. There's a lot of expectation. Actually, as a country, we're pretty much on freeze mode.
I mean, schools are not sure whether to open or whether to
I've been around the
extend
country. I was in
holiday.
Nanyuki yesterday. There's hardly any. I mean, people are on freeze mode for, let's say, a month. That's a major loss to the economy. This would be unfortunate if that loss is just for the sake of drama and theatrics. But to the extent that it's for meaningful determination of issues in a manner where even the losers feel, okay, this was fair. Because remember, we talked about uniting the country, right?
Right.
Well, you feel, okay, my person lost, he lost fairly, this is good, let's support the president, etc. That's very important, even from the standpoint of the need for legitimacy. Whether it's me, whether it's Uhuru, I need to come into a country where you're leading, and this is the same problem you have in the US, where a vast number, maybe a majority, are against the president, are wishing him downfall, etc. Even if Uhuru is upheld, Michelle, he must understand that 7 million people are not with him, and that's a problem. And you don't fix that problem by the former majority leader, Adan Duale, running and saying, we're waiting to be sworn in so we can chase Auditor General Oko away, for example. You know, that is extremely damaging, and that's my great approach.
Tommy, let's hear from you as we move away from this topic.
There are certain things that that are happening at the moment that shouldn't be happening. For instance, one branch of government criticizing another. Okay, you need these institutions, but you criticizing them gives the public a negative image of that branch of government. Say, for instance, the executive criticizing the judiciary, going directly after specific judges and things of that nature. And just like what Murkomen has done here, that's something we should really stay away from. It's happening in the US too, Trump criticizing judges. It's very important to be careful about those kinds of interactions.
And the sanctity of our institutions. But of course, the institutions that are independent also have to prove their own worth to Kenyans.
And Michelle, just one last one. I think when talking about the unity of the country and what Benji has said, that 7 million people voted Raila, given the preliminaries that we have, one comment that I would like to make about President Uhuru, to be fair to him, his speech was very conciliatory.
Right.
He must be applauded for that. And he says, and President Uhuru has this tone where he really, really unites the people. Unfortunately, after President Uhuru, everybody else, when the moment he or she opens the mouth, discord and division spreads.
I always say he's his own best spokesman for the government.
Precisely.
Nobody in the government is better than the president.
Uhuru sounds sincere.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Uhuru sounds sincere. But look at Mheshimiwa Murkomen. Look at Mheshimiwa Duale.
Look at Mheshimiwa Ruto.
And look, number two. So every time the president speaks, I get the feeling that if only this was the only guy who was speaking on matters of government, even pro-Raila people would say, okay, Mheshimiwa, let's go that.
Let's work. Let's
But
move.
the
But of
moment
course, unity has to come from both sides. We've seen this from President Uhuru Kenyatta. Are we seeing the same will from
And Michelle, remember, when you tell Raila, accept and move on, he did in 2013, whatever the merit of 2013. And as soon as he has moved on and his people, you are busy insulting him and telling him, yule mzee vitendawili alipoteza. For God's sake, you know, you pleaded with him and said, let's accept and move on.
Ile group ya wale wangwana.
He moved these people and they accepted.
Don't keep rubbing it in his face every day.
Yeah, the next minute, you're insulting him.
Right.
And Raila is no small politician in this country. Just before this session, Benji was saying, he's the senior most politician in this country.
Right.
He's actually more senior than the president in terms of...
Politically, yes.
Politically, he is. So let's give the credit due. And Francis Atwoli said it very well. If you're an African, go to Karen, Honorable Raila's home, and tell him, mzee, tuajua hayakwenda vile ulivyotaka. Lakini tumekuja kuomba. Kenya ni yetu wote. Twende mbele. There is a way that will work on Honorable Raila's conscience. But you don't tell the Honorable Prime Minister, accept and move on, and in the next rally, you are throwing insult his way. Even those who support Raila can support President Uhuru, and they ought to support President Uhuru. If we are respectful as a nation, if we respect others, and preach peace.
All right.
Michelle, allow me, this is just yesterday, allow me, I'll be very brief, to quote the president verbatim. This is yesterday at State House, speaking to all the contestants who won in Nairobi County, a county that commands more than half of the GDP of this country, a county that has been mismanaged under the Kidero administration, a county that must lead the way on devolution, and in not doing so, that endangers devolution itself. Because if Kenyans see that the county government of Nairobi cannot provide services, cannot account for money it collects, then they will ask themselves, why should we have a county government in Bomet? This is more of a philosophical thing. The president, quote, Nairobians want to see efficient garbage collection, clean water, and better traffic flow. In short, they want to see a rapid and significant improvement in service delivery. Quote, most of you have been elected for the first time. Do not allow power to get into your heads. I have seen many taking that route, and they failed. Wananchi are the wakubwa. And that is why we want to change Nairobi for the benefit, quote. We want to change Nairobi not for the benefit of leaders, not for the benefit of the few who are able to make it on their own, but for the vast majority who depend on us to change their lives. Last quote. Please preach peace. If you must celebrate, do be moderate and thereafter start offering services.
Precisely.
Kenyans who elected you are watching, and after a short time, they will start questioning whether you are fulfilling what you promised. Quote. That is the president yesterday.
Show humility.
Look at that
in
kind of
victory.
language.
All right.
Now, as to how they follow through after their rhetoric is my question to the Jubilee government, because there seems to be a gap between the president's personal pronouncements and the actual actions of his government even from before. I'm told that if he's upheld and he continues, there'll be a lot of changes. But this kind of tone is very, very, very important in leadership. This is very important for a country. You can see that this is actually what can bring unity. There's no, alluding to communities and ethnic tensions and all of this 17th century stuff that we're dealing with every day. But the problem is the people that are around him must follow suit. Indeed. And then provide the kind of approach to politics that Kenyans young.
All right, so let's leave that alone. The presidential petition is something that we'll keep following and following up on. But we had 5 other calibers or positions that we had leaders elected in. Let's take a look at page 19 of the Standard newspaper this morning. Kenya decides, and the sub-headline here is fiery ex-senators take governors' hot seats amid lofty dreams and hype. So it's pretty much a case of the hunter now becoming the hunted. And we have about, is it 5 governors who were senators and are now governors. We have the likes of Kiraitu Murungi, Anyang' Nyong'o, Mike Sonko, John Lonyangapuo, Stephen Sang, and Mohamed Kuti. Let's begin with you, Tommy. These are the governors who were, basically the watchdogs of the previous governors, keeping the governors on toes, ensuring that funds are properly used. Your thoughts on these people becoming governors now and what change this will make to that gubernatorial position?
For those who don't know what senators do, their role is oversight of counties. Okay? So these people have had an opportunity to see where the money is wasted and where services are not being delivered. But now they're in an executive position as governor, which will enable them to do a whole lot. And with that information, with that knowledge of where the loopholes are and where things need to be done, they should be very effective, especially, say, Mike Sonko. All right? I'll speak on Nairobi because this touches me directly. Okay? I voted for Kidero last time. We thought education would help us and salvage everything. We laughed at stone-throwing MPs and said they shouldn't be running counties like this. But we were left with a bag of bad goods. I can't.
And the stone throwers are today governors, and Kidero is just out.
Yes. Now we have Mike Sonko. All right? So now he's in a position to become, to actually execute. And we've seen in the last few days, there's been social media buzz about places getting cleaned up. So this gives me hope. Maybe the rest of the panel can speak directly to...
Right, and we'll get back to Mike Sonko. I understand there's a whole page dedicated just to him.
Yes.
But Mukwana, this also puts questions on the whole system of devolution, because there was a big criticism that this first pioneer devolved government, the senators did not quite achieve the mandate that the Senate was set out for. We did not really see, as a country, any prosecutions coming out from the Auditor General's report, which had evidence of massive corruption in about all the 47 county governments. Do you feel that the senators achieved their mandate, and that these 5 gentlemen now, stepping into the higher notch, have done their job as senators and will be able to deliver now as governors?
Thank you, Michelle. To be fair to the senators, they did put in quite a bit. If you recall, a number of governors landed before them. And take the case of Martin Wambora, for example.
The man with 9 lives.
The man with 9 lives. He appeared before the Senate a couple of times. He survived, as you've seen. And quite a number of others. Mwangi wa Iria, I think he came a number of times. And he went back. He has been re-elected. My own Wycliffe Oparanya, I think in the last stages of the government, he defied to come. So yes, they have had their fair share of success as the Senate, but we have had hiccups. These hiccups must be attributed to the overall political situation in the country. That, for instance, when Wycliffe Oparanya says, I'm not going to go before the Senate, and cites the bullfighter as the reason why he's not going, really, is it about the Senate not doing its work, or is it about the politicians disabling the Senate? My friend here talked about the Odingas being unable, and I would dare say, were they unable or were they disabled? You know, you may be unable because you're disabled in that case. So, in my view, the Senate did a comparable good job. These guys who did not do their job as governors, 22 of them have gone home. And barring any election petition, as you've seen in Tharaka Nithi, Muthomi Njuki is facing a likely one. We have seen in a number of places. Barring any election petition, 22 of them have gone home. That is an indicator. That's almost half.
Did Njuki win, by the way?
Muthomi Njuki is the governor-elect in Tharaka Nithi, I think. So barring any election petition to unseat the governor-elect, the people have shown that they will not tolerate the pilferation of resources at the county level. And Michelle, you must remember that if there is any legacy, the greatest legacy ever bestowed upon the people of Kenya by Honorable Raila Odinga, largely, he was not alone, but largely, is the Constitution of Kenya 2010.
Right.
And this must be encouraged because it will help demystify this all-powerful presidency. There are 47 mini presidents in this country and one main one. So these governors must understand that if they do their work properly, all this angling about the presidency and the goodies will diminish with time.
Right.
And most of these young men who are flooding Nairobi every end of a graduation will troop back to their home yards because there are opportunities in the counties.
Right.
Thank you.
Let's move away from that and how they will be performing. Of course, the media will be watching, Kenyans will be watching. But on page 20, as we wind up, Chiloba's love for coffee, God and what friends think of him. So this man, Chiloba, was quite in the limelight, especially in the last 2 days before the announcement of the presidential results. A lot of memes going on about him. So, ladies, do grab your copy of the Standard, page 20 for that. Let's take a look at something more important. On page 25 of the paper. Coming back to you, Randall, Sonko now facing a harsh reality of governing the city. So the city is choking in garbage. That's nothing new to residents of Nairobi. There's burst sewers, while water shortage has become a perennial problem. I believe the water shortage has extended to parts of Nairobi that traditionally had not experienced water problems. Let's come to you, Tommy, and your thoughts on Sonko and his manifesto during the campaign period. One of the things he said is that he would have dealt with the traffic jams by Monday. That was the Monday after the election. I don't know if you've seen that actually happening.
Well, there's been no traffic.
Well, that's because you came here very early. There's no traffic at 5 a.m.
That's going to be a challenging issue. I always wonder why there's traffic when we have all this technology going around. You still need police directing traffic when the light is green telling you to stop. So it would be very nice if that could be fixed. As far as water is concerned, I understand from Dakaini Dam to here, about 60% of the water is lost. So that issue goes beyond Sonko. Garbage is something he can definitely do. I go to Kawangore a lot to buy mangoes at the market.
Really?
But people I know who know me know what I'm talking about. There is a garbage heap there that extends into the road to where you have to stop and use one lane because the garbage has come in.
Stage chata.
Right. And then you have, people selling goods right there, food items. I find that very disturbing.
Right.
But it would be nice to see Sonko deal with that.
And we've seen him with the Sonko rescue team and a round number of volunteers trying to clean up the city, removing posters.
So this must be said. I know Mheshimiwa Sonko quite a bit. He's not like a personal friend, but I know quite a bit about his work, about his bid in Kamkunji from 2010. We've had some things in common when I had a case against the former Governor Kidero in court.
Right.
So Sonko has also compiled a lot of evidence of the pilferage, of all the misdeeds of the county government, that you saw him actually have a physical altercation against Evans Kidero at the Senate. Having said that, Sonko's heart is in the right place. That's what he has.
I beg your pardon?
His heart
Is in?
is in the right place.
Okay.
He has a heart for the poor. That's the takeoff of his politics. That widows, orphans, those unable to access medical services, etc., those living below the poverty line, that it is not acceptable for them to be that way. They actually have turned out to be his biggest supporters, his biggest voters. He does give a damn about those. Now, is he unpolished? Yes. Does he have other, perception and image issues? Yes. A bit of ukora, you could say, yes. But by and large, this is a very rare trait in our leaders, who usually come from the conservative, elitist culture and could care less. So Sonko is the kind of guy that will put money together and provide a bursary from his own money, from other monies, for orphans, for widows and what have you. So to that extent, he's begun very well. He will do very well. If any of you here have read their manifesto, it's a wonderful manifesto. It is very, 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 very well crafted. I'm sure his deputy governor, Igathe, had a lot to do with that. And what I told them before they were elected is that if he could deliver Michelle even half of that manifesto, I think that he would outrightly have won the hearts and minds of Nairobians and Kenyans. But let me say finally.
All right, and we're very briefly have to wind up.
Let me say finally, because this is a very important topic. If you look at the events of 2 days ago, where Wakulima Market has been cleaned like you can't believe, Sonko was able to do in a week what Kidero couldn't do in 5 years. It's always about just having the right drive and the right approach to issues. I think they'll do a lot. He has promised there'll be garbage collection. He has promised to deal ruthlessly with the cartels. We will support him in those bids. That's the only thing we can do.
And we will be watching. Let's wind up as I give you closing comments. Mukwana, do you agree, first of all, with Ndolo that Sonko's heart is in the right place? And is this the right man to lead this county?
Yes, I do. On that, the Swahili people say, Mgala muue, lakini haki yake mpe. I think that Sonko, personally, I'm very happy with the entry of Sonko in Nairobi because he comes from humble beginnings, and he identifies with the vast majority of Nairobians, and therefore should be able to live to the expectation. He has demonstrated as a senator that he's pro-poor. Yeah. However, there comes a time when that very stand may work against him. For example, you've said that he indicated he'll be clearing the traffic jam in Nairobi within a week. This traffic jam is not a simple matter. There are so many vested interests in why these matatus should come into town. Kidero tried removing the police from the CBD, the traffic marshals. And if you recall, there was a big fight.
It was a meltdown.
You understand? So there are a lot of vested interests. And for me, whereas Sonko will remain the people's person that he has been, the vast work must rest on his deputy, Polycarp, whom I understand he was prevailed upon to accept him on the basis that that's the technocrat.
There was a technocrat in the politician.
Precisely, but you must understand also that the decisions, Sonko will be the boss at the end of the day. So there will be a lot of play between the politician Sonko and the autocrat Polycarp, and I really hope that it will be a fine play so that the Nairobians achieve the services. Frankly, Kidero's tenure
was a disaster.
Was disappointing.
All right, gentlemen. Tommy, unfortunately, we're out of time, and I will not be giving you closing comments this morning. We're out of time. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us on Kivumbi 2017. We've been speaking to lawyer Tommy Randall. Very sorry, Tommy, as well as lawyer Elitulala Mukwana and political analyst Benji Ndolo here on Kivumbi 2017. That brings us to a close on the early morning edition. With me, Michelle Ngele. Do have yourselves a wonderful morning. Do stay with us. More news and reviews coming up at the top of the hour.
KTN News. Get the whole story.